Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have, Ghislaine Maxwell moved to lower security prison in Texas, from WashingtonPost.com, posted by Ninja Lover, and they added, one of the most prolific sex traffickers of all time is being moved to a lower security prison. You gotta wonder what she promised to do for Trump in return for this gift. And I personally don't think it's much of a gift. I personally think, it's more of a punishment. I think they might be trying to take her out like they do with Epstein and that one Epstein victim that Virginia Guffrey, I think her name was. And yeah, I personally don't I think they want to silence anyone who can expose anything about the Epstein stuff. So I personally think Maxwell's probably going to be taken out sooner rather than later. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have U.S. job growth stalls, just 73,000 jobs added in July, with stunning downward revisions to recent months, from CNN.com, posted by Doctor Who 07. And yeah, personally, of course, Reddit's gonna always make anything Trump look bad. But I'm sure if this happened last year under Biden, Reddit would find a way to spin it positively. Reddit only cares about making Orange Man look bad all the time. It really has almost no values besides that, especially one of the more shit-lib subreddits like this one. This one's definitely, it might say it's libertarian on Uncensored, but like the Holy Roman Empire, it's neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. It's neither libertarian nor uncensored. It is basically just just another generic shitlib subreddit like r/politics outside of a few exceptions. And I used to be one of those exceptions, but then they banned me, which just goes to show you how bad things are whenever a Reddit moderator doesn't like you, they can just ban you for whatever reason they want to. And personally, I don't really care for that. But ultimately, that's why I think Reddit's kind of as bad as it is. It's the people in positions of leadership are losers who just love to ban anyone who dissents at all. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, lawmaker unveils Eric Adams Act threatening criminal penalties for sanctuary city mayors, from FoxNews.com, posted by Ninja Lover. And yeah, ultimately, I think, the libertarian position is, every locality should be able to have its own laws. And yeah, if you don't like that, you should be free to secede from that locality. The libertarian position should be to support secession down to the individual level. And yeah, personally, I might not care for some laws like sanctuary cities, but if you want to live in a sanctuary city, they should be able to. I personally wouldn't live in one, but if you want to, that's on you. And yeah, well, a lot of a Republican policy these days is, well, we gotta fix the laws of the DNC run shithole cities. And personally, I think the libertarian position is let them just fail on their own accord. The people who live in the cities, let them, they've made their bed, now let them lie in it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, of course, posted by Donald Key, and that's a cross post from the Thomas Massey subreddit, and that looks like a tweet from Thomas Massey, and he tweeted, "The group attacking me, MAGA Kentucky, is funded entirely by free billionaires. One gave millions to trans activism and Soros-backed Open Borders group, and even funded the Russia hoax. Another is in Epstein's Black Book and did a fundraiser for Senator Schumer." And yeah, my thoughts, and now there's some quote tweeting. Jake Sherman tweeted that there's a fundraiser. These are funds of the anti-Massey super PAC, Miriam Allison's PAC, John Paulson, and Paul Singer. And yeah, it just goes to show you how both branches of the Uniparty, they might always act like they're so different, but in reality, they're much more close together than they seem. Trump might say he's against, trans activism, Soros-backed Open Borders, the Russia hoax, but, since Thomas Massey dares dissent from it at all, Trump has to send his goons after him, and, it just goes to show you that people like Thomas Massey are the exception rather than the rule when it comes to Congress. The vast majority of Congress is on Israel's payroll, and would support pretty much any anything if the regime said to. And yeah, that's why we need poor people like Thomas Massie in Congress, I would say. But sadly, he's the exception rather than the rule, and it looks like they're going to try and take him out soon for standing up to the Orange Man. And that's why, you got to be like kind of more like Rand Paul a lot of the time, rather than stand up against the Orange Man. Because if you get on the Orange Man's bad side, you end up irrelevant, like former Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who hasn't been a senator for like 7 or 8 years now because he stood up too hard against the Orange Man. Then we have, there is always a tweet posted by Donald Key, and that's a cross post from the Age Like Milk subreddit. Well, and that's the truth Donald Trump made on August 21st, 2024. Massive scandal. The Harris-Biden administration has been caught fraudulently manipulating job statistics to hide the true extent of the economic ruin they have inflicted upon America. And then August 1st, 2025, he proved, in my opinion, today's job numbers were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad. And yeah, that's just Donald Trump for you, that's a lot of people, like most people when it comes to politics, he only has double standards. But it just goes to show you that, I'm sure if this, Reddit, that they care about his double standards, but they don't care about any of the Democrats' double standards, because, they only care about, Orange Man and Republicans bad, Sleepy Joe and Democrats good. And other than that, they really have no values at all. Some of the ones who are more openly Marxist might be a tad more principled in standing up against both branches of the party, even if I disagree with them on a lot. But, a lot of these days, it's pretty much all just DNC shills on Reddit who will do whatever the Democratic Party says. If the Democratic Party said to jump off a bridge, they would run off that bridge faster than I could say pretty much anything. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have Donald Trump praises registered sex offender invited to speak at White House event for children's fitness from advocate.com, posted by Doctor Who 07. And yeah, apparently that was him inviting former, New York Giant, Lawrence Taylor to the White House. And yeah, personally, I wouldn't have invited Lawrence Taylor to the White House, but Donald Trump's going to invite who he wants to invite to the White House. Of course, Reddit's going to say he's a sex offender because he is, and they say Trump's a sex offender as well. I guess you can make that argument as well, but they never hold any of the Democrats accountable if they were on the sex offender registry, because it's all just teams, no values, only teams. That's very much Reddit politics for you. Then next we have Truth is Treason, posted by CH4Locks, and that's a cross post from the Blue Sky Skeets subreddit, and that looks like a Blue Sky post from Brian Tyler Cohen. Well, Trump announces he is firing the U.S. Labor Statistics Commissioner for reporting that job numbers are weak under his watch. This is what dictators do. And of course, Trump's gonna, always gonna find a way to jerk himself off. But, ultimately, I think the libertarian position is we shouldn't have, the less government employees, the better. And yeah, so I personally don't really care for the reasons he's firing him. He just wants to jerk himself off more. But, at least it's one less government employee. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have White House announces new $200 million ballroom, a longtime Trump wish, from BBC.com, posted by CH4Locks. And yeah, personally, I don't think the government should be spending $200 million on a new ballroom. But ultimately, since they have the monopoly on legal force, they can do whatever they want with your taxpayer dollars, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Then next we have A Cool Guide to Sexual Predators by Party Affiliation US, posted by Tom13, and that's a cross post for There Was an Attempt subreddit to project pedophilia onto Democrats. And the pie chart says, to total offenders by political affiliation, 67.4% are, says Republicans, 69.6% are unknown, 30.5% are Democrat, and there's a small sliver of libertarians, I guess. And, the Reddit, of course, that Reddit's always, I personally don't really trust this that much. Anyone can distort data to suit their agenda, especially when it comes to their political agenda. So, I think this is just another Reddit post going, gee, aren't Republicans bad? And, eventually you get tired of it, I'm surprised Reddit just doesn't get tired. You can't do this every day without getting tired of it, if you ask me. But of course, Reddit, they have it's just an endless circle jerk to them. And I'm sure if Reddit was right leaning, the Democratic and Republican percentages would probably be replaced, and they'd be jerking about it just as hard. But Reddit, it's just I don't really care for circle jerks if regardless if they're progressive, conservative, libertarian, etc. And Reddit, is one of the worst types of circle jerks of all, shit lib circle jerk, where it's all pretty much orange man bad, Republicans bad all the time, and it gets pretty tiring after a while, and at least to me. But Reddit, people just want to jerk themselves off. Social media is very much ideological masturbation, I would say, and you definitely see that when it comes to Reddit. It's all the same. Gee, isn't Trump bad headlines every single day, and they keep on jerking themselves off to it, and eventually they'll just move on to someone else, maybe J.D. Vance or Tucker Carlson, whoever takes on the Republican man after Trump, and if they want to jerk off to how bad Republicans are, that's fine. I personally don't care for Republicans, but I think the libertarian position is justify doing whatever you want to. But, I personally don't have to care for it. I don't care for Republicans, but, you just can't jerk off to, gee, aren't Republicans bad 24/7 every day of your life? I mean, if you want to justify doing that, justify doing whatever you want to, but I think that's a very empty existence. Just thinking nothing but, gee, aren't Republicans bad 24/7? You should be open and questioning everyone and everything rather than just circle jerking, gee, the outgroup is bad. And I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.